Hello everyone! Paletteful Packs sent me their March box, which is all about watercolors. So, oh my god! This is so cute with it looks like grass. It totally matches the green of the box. I didn't know there were like so many things in the box. I didn't expect that we have a full watercolor palette here. This is amazing. Let's open it. Koi watercolors from Sakura. Oh my god, look how cute it is. Oh my god. I'm just completely extreme when I'm excited, so sorry for that. Oh my god. Oh, this is so cool. This is a water brush pen, and I think you can add water here, and then you have to open this thing here. And then you put just water in this thing. I don't know how this is called. And then you can just add the brush here on top. Let's check that out first. Oh, okay, it was the other direction. So then you have a perfect water brush. This is so cool. I'm excited. This is so amazing. What a great idea. Okay, now I have to open it again, add this lid, and put it here inside. This is so cute, guys. Oh my god, look at the colors. They are so beautiful. Let's get rid of all this green grass stuff. Sorry, but I don't need packaging material, so just put it in the trash. Oh my god, there's so much other stuff here. What else do we have? Woohoo. So this is a metallic set. This looks so nice. This looks so nice. Okay, what is it? This is Indigo Pan Watercolors, a durable case with lid for mixing colors. Use alone or with other watercolors. Non-toxic. Okay, so this is a metallic set. Ah, okay. I should have read the front side here, not the back. Pearlescent watercolors from Niji Yasutomo. What do we have here? March Premiere Pack Watercolor Painting. Okay, here's just the contents of the inside. Then their social media context. Oh, this is so nice. Oh, this is so nice. I love watercolor postcards. Oh, they're really heavy. Yeah, this is 300 grams. Strathmore watercolor postcards. This is cool. This looks really good. I like that. Then we have a Derwent watercolor pen. Sap green. So this is just a green pen. It will dilute with watercolor. So I don't use watercolor pens because I like to work with color pencils which don't dissolve, because when I want something like look as watercolor, I use watercolor. When I want to have something look like color pencils, I use color pencils, but I don't want the color pencils to dissolve. So this is why I don't use watercolor pens, but some artists use them and they found them very helpful. Okay, next one. Oh my god! Visual journal. Cold press watercolor paper. Oh, this looks so nice. I love that. This is cold press watercolor paper, but actually it is not rough on the surface. It's very smooth actually, so this is pretty cool. Okay, so here's the Strathmore Visual Journal watercolor pen. Pad, notebook, watercolor notebook. Okay, it's a notebook. I'm excited. I want to try something out with these. Yeah, I will do something with it, guys. I'm excited.
Before I started painting right away, I did some color swatches with the Koi watercolors first. I loved all the colors and I was very impressed by the pigmentation. The only thing that I think is pretty redundant in the watercolor set is white watercolor. Who on earth needs white watercolor? Most of the time it is not opaque enough to cover areas you want to correct, and if you want something to be lighter, usually you use the white of the paper to get that effect. But who knows, maybe there are some artists who make some effects with white. Maybe when you use it in a wet on wet technique, you might be able to get some effects. However, personally, I don't really need white watercolor, but I was very happy with this set. I used that to create the portrait of Zeynep, the little daughter of our best friends, who is extremely cute and adorable, but can be a devil if she wants to. To start my artwork, I removed a page of the visual journal and cut off the border of the paper so that it is even on each side, and then I taped it down onto a piece of wood. Then I traced my photograph onto the paper with the help of graphite tracing paper. By the way, you can find all materials that I used to create this artwork in the video description. As usual, I started by filling in the skin tones of my portrait. Then when everything was still wet, I also filled in the darker portions of the painting, like the hair. But pretty soon I realized, while my artwork was drying, that something was different than usual. On the visual journal paper, the color dried up patchy, which you can see in the hair portion. This is not what I like when I do my blending techniques for realistic portraits, and I realized that I wouldn't be able to apply my technique on this kind of paper. Because I use a lot of layers, when all those layers would have dried patchy, it would look very smooth in the end. So I decided that this paper wasn't the right one for my technique, and I had to switch back to my favorite paper, which is Fabriano hot pressed or Arches hot pressed too. They are both very similar. However, I wouldn't say that the visual journal from Strathmore is inherently a bad watercolor paper. I think it is great for probably every other technique, but just not my technique. For example, if you do lettering and you don't use a lot of wet and wet techniques and not so much layers, or if you just do loose sketches, of course, I believe the visual journal would work. Every watercolor paper is great for different kinds of techniques. For me, it just wasn't the right one. So I just started over and traced my photo onto a new piece of paper, and here is the process of this. Here you can see that I started with the exact same order. Like in the first attempt, I began with filling in the skin tones and the hair portion, and here you can see very well how evenly the color dried on the Fabriano paper. So you don't see any patches or little spots or texture. It dried very evenly, and this was what I need for my realistic painting technique. This portrait is just a pretty much one-to-one depiction of this little girl, so I won't change much, and for that I really have to render the photograph as realistic and as exact as possible. After having filled in the face portion and added the first layer on her jacket, I filled in the background while the hair was still wet. This way I could make some lovely bleeding effects with the hair, and I also added some additional spots of colors to make everything look a little bit more wild, and I simply enjoy abstract effects in general. Before I got into the nitty-gritty and the details, I added a couple of splashes on the painting as well to reflect the wild character of this sweetheart. For the splash effect, I used the pearlescent metallic paints, which I really enjoyed because they were quite intense and quite metallic. The only thing that I didn't like that much was that they were very opaque, but this is usual for metallic paints, that they are very opaque and they cover the underlying watercolor. So for me this wasn't a big deal because I added all the splash effects in the beginning of the artwork and I added more layers later. Adding layers on the metallic paint was a little bit difficult because the watercolor didn't stick as perfect on top of it, but it wasn't a huge problem. I really enjoyed having the metallic effect on the painting, and I just love glittering and metallic paints in general. Of course, if you know me, you know that. Then I continued with the blendings and the midtones of the face portion. Here she holds her face with her hand and it's squished together so you can see her cheeks and her mouth all squished together, which looks just so funny and cute, but it's also pretty challenging to paint. So I had to pay attention to the highlights and the dark shadows around the hands, the nose and the mouth. While the face was drying, I worked on the hands and added shadows and midtones while leaving all the white areas out. When I paint hands and intricate details like the facial portions, sometimes it helps adding contours around those different things. For example, I add very tiny contours between the hands and the face where those two elements touch so that it is easier for the viewer to recognize what I paint. I started with the left left eye because I haven't painted a child's eye before and they look totally different than eyes from adults. So first I wanted to make sure that I know what I'm doing before I started with the right eye. Also because both eyes weren't quite even again, because she squishes her face so much that I didn't have to pay much attention to the evenness of the eyes. So I could completely concentrate on the color values, irises, the shadows and the little folds around the eyes. The color pencils that I used in the face portion are all listed down below in the video description. I use a huge range of different skin tones for my portraits. I use the Polychromos color pencils from Faber-Castell. I haven't found any other color pencils that are as good as those color pencils. They have a very large range of skin tones and I use all of them within the same face, most of the time even within the same area of the face, because when I layer them all over on top, all the colors vibrate. It's like an illusion. It doesn't really look like real skin, but it comes very close. So you have blues and grays and browns and greens, and all of them create an illusion of skin. This is at least how I see it. And also I think it's a lot of fun to layer all those different colors. I sometimes even use turquoises and greens, although my reference photo is just brown, because it just looks more interesting and it almost looks like the skin is living. So yeah, this is how I see it at least. I carefully build up the different values of the face. The darkest areas are between the eyes, on the forehead, and left and right from the nose and under her mouth. But I don't start with the darkest tones first, because I can't erase color pencils, and if I do a mistake, that's pretty much it. So instead of just starting right away with a super dark color, I just layer all of those colors on top of each other, and in the end I will use a darker color, maybe burnt umber for example, or sometimes even black, when I'm really sure that this area is that dark. I continued this process until I was relatively happy with the face. This particular portrait needed a lot of attention to detail, so I worked probably 80% of the time on the face and working on every tiny color variation and color, because I really wanted to get the likeness right with this portrait. I also used a couple of Luminance pencils from Caran d'Ache. Many of you already know that I used them to blend the color pencils in the end. They are wax based and they add a shiny layer of wax on top of your drawing while also blending your color pencils. So whenever I finished a small portion of the face and I thought this portion might be ready, I used a shade of the Luminance pencils that fit to that particular portion and worked over this area. If I was not happy with this area, I could just work on top of it with Polychromos again. It's not that easy because you have to draw on that wax layer, but it is possible. You can always draw on top with the Luminance pretty much everywhere, and they are relatively opaque. So I have a couple of different skin shades from Luminance to blend the different shades of color pencils. While I was working on the face, I already added a couple of hair strands and larger portions of the hair with watercolors, but then I added a new layer on top of the hair with gouache paints. I used the 60 gouache paints from Arteza, with which I am super satisfied with because they have so many different shades. Also, they are relatively fluid, so I don't have to mix water with them, or just only a tiny little bit. And this is perfect when I want to enhance my watercolor paintings, especially for hair. I think hair is really difficult, and I personally find that I can render hair the best with gouache paints. I know I could do it with color pencils too, but I'm too impatient for that. I just can't bring myself to draw every tiny hair strand with color pencils. I would absolutely hate that. Also, I think it is a bit boring if every part of the painting looks the same. So although, for example, I adore the face portion and how it is drawn, I don't want my whole painting to look like that, at least not with this painting. With some other paintings it might be better for the motive if everything looks the same, but I think with this piece, especially because it is based on a just normal phone picture. The colors are not that exciting. It's not particularly vibrant or colorful. I want to create with my technique an interesting and exciting piece of art, and I try to do that by using different materials and different techniques. It took quite a lot of work to get all the hair strands as I wanted them to look like. They aren't photorealistic, I admit. They have a more illustrative look to them, but I quite like how they look. I have to pay a lot of attention to the color values on my reference photo, and I also added all the brown tones that I could find on my palette. Arteza, I think, has 5 different brown tones or even more, and I just all used them. Some colors were especially helpful, for example taupe, which is a pre-mixed very light brown grayish tone, which is perfect for all the lighter hair strands, and I just have to pay close attention which color value I need in which portion of the hair. So it's quite difficult, but with concentration it works, and also by turning the painting while I work is very helpful, so I can get clean and dynamic round brush strokes for the individual hair strands. Then in the end I also just reworked a couple of details on the face, just tiny little things. I haven't recorded that part, but I really closely compare my reference photo to the artwork and just add tiny little details here and there and color variations and check the values to get the best likeness that I am capable of. And then in the end I thought it looks good, but something is still missing here, and I thought that pink cherry blossoms would fit perfectly to the portrait because they give a lovely contrast to the blue of the painting, and they also add a little bit more dynamic and help showing the wild character of Zeynep. And that's it for the painting process. In the end I ended up using a lot more materials that were included in the Paletteful pack, and that brings us to my review of the pack. First of all, I absolutely enjoyed the unpacking process of the art materials. This alone just sparked joy in me. I really enjoyed the koi watercolors and the pearlescent watercolors. They were a great addition to my artwork, and I think they make this pack very special. I personally couldn't work with the Strathmore paper, and the postcard paper was a little bit too small for this portrait, but just because I intended to make a larger portrait. If I wanted to make a postcard, this would have worked, but I haven't tested the paper yet. Might be the same paper like the visual journal, but I will probably use the paper in future and let you know about it. I will probably post that on my Patreon page. Also, the watercolor pen is just not for me, but for other artists it might be the perfect choice. So I think the pack is pretty good for covering a wide range of techniques and interests for different kinds of watercolor artists, I guess. So depending on what technique you use or just how you paint. Again, if you're doing maybe a lettering style or just a more abstract or loose style, the visual journal would be perfect for you. So it's really depending on the artist, I guess. So I personally really like the package. I like those watercolors, but I couldn't really use all of it. I have linked the Paletteful packs in the video description, so if you want to learn more, go check them out. Now, if you found this tutorial helpful, but you would like to see the full painting and drawing process in real time, guess what? I've got you covered. I've just released an over 3 hours long real-time video of Zeynep on my Patreon page. You get access to it by supporting me on Patreon at the $10 reward tier. You will also get the reference photo and can download the video and keep it forever. But not only that, by joining me on Patreon at the real-time video reward tier, you get access to over 70 real-time videos and narrated painting lessons. And if you want to learn more, I have lots of tutorials and real-time lessons available for you on my Patreon site, in which I teach you my technique in detail and step by step. In many of my videos you even get to see my mixing process in a second camera window, and you can download the reference photo too. On top of that, all videos are downloadable and you can keep them forever. For just $5 a month, you get instant access to over 70 painting videos. That's pretty neat, right? And for only $10 you get access to another whole full library of unrated but even longer real-time videos of all my recent artworks. If you have seen some of my works and you always wondered how I did them, then this pledge is the right one for you. Just visit my website and browse the tutorial section. There you will find a list of all lessons and real-time videos available. And for the extra portion of art, you might even fancy the art surprise tier. For only $5 more, I send you a beautiful set of 3 unique art gifts each month. I chose the best artworks and illustrations that I created and turned them into beautiful magnets, stickers and postcards, which are not only wonderful decorations for your home, but also are rare collectibles, because once I send them out, they won't be available anywhere else and I don't reprint them. So get your art surprises package this month. So what are you waiting for? Up your painting game and join me now on patreon.com/leobarbrückner. So that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next one. Bye bye!